In the quiet town of Hawthorne, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved slowly. People went about their days, unaware that the world was about to change forever. For Thomas, a quiet man in his late 20s, his routine consisted of simple things: work, his morning coffee, and visits to the local cemetery. It had become a place of peace, a place where he would go to remember his late wife. Anna had passed away unexpectedly. The grief had almost swallowed Thomas whole, leaving him in a state of constant sorrow. He would visit her grave every week, a habit he couldn't break. He would stand there for hours, talking to her as though she were still listening. To Thomas, the cemetery was more than just a resting place. It was where he still felt her presence. On a cold autumn day, as he stood at her grave, a strange noise caught his attention. It wasn't the wind rustling through the trees or the distant hum of traffic. It was something different. A low, rumbling sound that seemed to shake the ground beneath him. He paused, trying to ignore it, but it grew louder. The sound of something approaching. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in the corner of his vision. Turning around quickly, Thomas found himself staring at an enormous craft in the sky. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't a plane, nor was it anything from Earth. Its sleek, dark metal body glowed with an eerie light, and its presence felt unnatural, almost otherworldly. The craft hovered above the cemetery, casting an ominous shadow over the graves below. Thomas took a few steps back, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The world around him seemed to stand still, as if time itself had frozen. The air grew heavy, and a cold wind whipped through the cemetery. Without thinking, Thomas began to run. His mind was racing, and his body reacted on instinct. But just as he was about to make it to the cemetery gate, the ground shook violently, and he stumbled, falling to his knees. The craft was now descending slowly, and the whole sky seemed to change. The clouds parted, revealing a bright, unnatural light that bathed the cemetery in an otherworldly glow. Then, the unthinkable happened. The ground around Thomas began to crack open, and strange figures emerged from the cracks. They were tall and humanoid, with dark, sleek skin that shimmered in the light. Their eyes glowed a fierce red, and their movements were quick and fluid, like predators stalking their prey. They didn't look like anything from Earth. They were something else, something alien. Thomas's heart raced even faster. His mind struggled to comprehend what was happening. Who were these creatures? Why were they here? But before he could process any of it, a loud voice boomed from the sky. "Prepare for the invasion," the voice commanded. It was deep and mechanical, sending a chill down Thomas's spine. "You will fall before us, Earthlings." As the voice faded, Thomas felt a hand on his shoulder. He spun around, ready to defend himself, but there was no one there. His heart pounded harder, and he looked around frantically, trying to find the source of the touch. That's when he saw her. Anna. She was standing in front of him, her eyes glowing with a soft blue light. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, but Thomas could feel the weight of the situation pressing in on him. He blinked, unsure if he was imagining things. His mind was struggling to keep up with the reality unfolding before him. The woman in front of him was unmistakably his Anna, but she was different. There was something about her that wasn't quite right. Thomas stepped back, his voice shaking. "Anna, is it really you?" She didn't speak at first. Instead, she reached out, her hand hovering near his face. There was a strange power in her presence, and Thomas could feel it radiating from her. It was as if the very air around them was alive with energy. "Yes, Thomas," Anna finally spoke, her voice soft yet powerful. "But I am not the same as I once was. The world has changed, and so have I." Before Thomas could respond, the ground trembled again. The alien figures were advancing, their movements swift and precise. It was clear they had come for something or someone, and Thomas, realized with a sickening feeling in his gut that they weren't going to leave without getting what they wanted. Anna's eyes flashed as she turned toward the aliens. They're here for a reason, Thomas, but they can be stopped. Thomas looked at her, the confusion in his mind beginning to clear. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to face this alone. Then we'll stop them together, Thomas said, his voice full of determination. Anna nodded, her expression serious. We have a long fight ahead of us, but you're not alone. Not anymore. As the first of the aliens closed in on them, the ground shook once more, and the sky above them lit up with an explosion of color. The battle for Earth had begun, and Thomas was no longer just a grieving widower. He was about to become part of a war that would change everything. And Anna, his lost love, was somehow the key to their survival. Thomas could hardly believe what was happening. The moment Anna had touched his shoulder, everything had shifted. The graveyard, once a peaceful place of mourning, was now a battlefield. He could hear the alien forces closing in, their footsteps growing louder as they advanced. Yet, with Anna standing before him, something inside Thomas refused to let fear take control. There was something more at play here, something he had yet to understand. Anna, what's going on? How can you be here? Thomas asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. Anna's eyes softened. She was still the woman he had loved, but her presence was different. Her glow, her aura, it was as if she carried something beyond the realm of the living. She had always been a mystery, but now she seemed more than human, more than mortal. Never left you, Thomas, Anna said, her voice gentle but carrying an unmistakable strength. I've been watching, waiting, and learning. Thomas looked around as the ground beneath them seemed to tremble once again. The alien invaders were closer now, tall, dark figures with eyes like fire. The glowing red orbs pierced through the rain-soaked air, and their movements were relentless. They weren't like anything Thomas had ever seen. But somehow, in the face of these creatures, Anna seemed more like a guiding light, not the frail woman he had buried months ago. What are they? Thomas asked, still trying to comprehend the situation. Anna's gaze turned cold and calculating, her eyes fixed on the alien forces moving towards them. They are called the Igari, she explained, an ancient race that has been searching for a way to conquer this world. They've come for the power hidden here, the power within Earth itself. Thomas could feel his heart beat faster. Earth had power? He couldn't fathom it. But why now? Why do they want Earth? Anna stepped forward, her expression growing serious. Because Earth is a nexus, a place where worlds collide. The Igari have known for eons that this planet holds the key to unimaginable power. The only thing stopping them is the force that lies within this land, the same force that saved me. Thomas's confusion deepened. He took a step closer to her, desperate for more answers. What do you mean? How does all of this connect to you? Why are you here? Anna's eyes softened, and she reached out to touch his face. For a moment, Thomas felt like he could breathe again. The connection between them, the bond they had shared in life, was still there unbroken. But now, it felt as though something much greater was pulling them together. I'm not just your wife anymore, Thomas, Anna said softly. When I died, something changed. The Igari tried to take me, tried to use me for their own purposes. But something inside of me fought back. I don't know how, but I became ... something else. And now, the Igari are coming for me again. They think they can control me. Thomas's chest tightened. What do they want from you? Why me? Why us? They want the power within me, Anna said, her voice heavy with the weight of what she was revealing. And you, Thomas, are the key to stopping them. Thomas couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman he had loved, the woman he had buried, she was connected to the very forces that now threatened their world. And somehow he was involved in this too? His mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. I'm not special, Anna, he said, almost pleading with her. I don't know anything about this. I'm just a man who lost the love of his life. I don't know how to fight these things. Anna's gaze softened. You are special, Thomas, more than you realize. The love we shared, the bond we have, it's the only thing that can stop them. As she spoke, the Igari began to circle them, their movements becoming more aggressive. The air around them crackled with energy, and Thomas could feel the tension building. It was clear the time for answers had passed. Now it was time to act. Anna took Thomas's hand, her grip firm, but her touch still carrying the warmth he had missed for so long. We're going to stop them, together, she said, her voice determined. We have the power. The Igari don't understand Earth. They don't understand us. But we understand each other. That's our advantage. The ground beneath them seemed to shift once again, as though the planet itself was awakening to the threat that loomed above. Thomas could feel the power surging around them, connecting them in a way he couldn't explain. Anna wasn't just his wife, she was something far more important now. And he realized with a surge of clarity that it was no accident that he had come here today. It was no coincidence that he had found her grave at the exact moment when the world needed him the most. We'll fight, Thomas said, his voice firming. But how? How do we stop them? Anna's lips curled into a determined smile. The answer lies beneath the earth. There's a power hidden in this land, and we must unlock it before they do. We'll go to the heart of the place where everything began, but we have to hurry. The Igari won't wait much longer. The aliens were closing in, their dark figures casting long shadows over the graveyard. Thomas felt a sudden surge of determination. The war wasn't just about survival, it was about something much deeper. It was about protecting everything. They had everything they had lost, and everything they could still fight for. Without another word, Anna led Thomas toward the center of the cemetery, where the ancient power lay hidden, waiting to be unleashed. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, Thomas knew one thing for sure. He wasn't alone. The wind howled through the cemetery, carrying with it a cold, unsettling chill. Thomas could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he followed Anna, the woman he thought he had lost forever, toward the center of the graveyard. The Igari, the alien invaders, were closing in. Their red eyes glowed menacingly, casting an eerie light over the damp earth. Anna moved with purpose, her eyes scanning the surroundings as if she knew exactly where they needed to go. Despite everything that had happened, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that this was where he was meant to be. The graveyard, once a place of sorrow, had now become the epicenter of a war that would determine the fate of Earth. Anna, Thomas whispered, trying to keep his voice steady. Where are we going? What's at the center of this place? Anna didn't answer right away. She led him through the rows of graves, her footsteps silent in the rain-soaked earth. But as they approached the heart of the cemetery, the ground beneath them began to vibrate. Thomas's body tensed, his senses on high alert. Something was wrong. He could feel the air thickening, a strange energy building around them. There's something beneath this ground, Anna finally replied, her voice low but unwavering. Something ancient. The Igari believe they can control it, but they're wrong. The power here isn't theirs to command. As they reached the center, Thomas could see a massive stone structure partially buried in the earth, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. The air around, it felt alive, pulsing with energy. It was unlike anything Thomas had ever seen, an ancient artifact, old beyond comprehension. But what was it? And why had it been hidden here, in this seemingly ordinary cemetery? This is it, Anna said, turning to face Thomas. Her expression was grave, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. This is where everything begins and ends. The Igari will come for it, but we must unlock its power before they do. Thomas stepped closer to the stone, feeling the strange energy emanating from it. He reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface. The moment his hand made contact, a surge of energy shot through him, unlike anything he had ever felt before. It was as though the very earth beneath him was alive, and he was connected to it. A voice, ancient and deep, echoed in his mind. You seek the power of the earth, but it comes at a cost. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, its presence overwhelming. Thomas staggered back, his breath caught in his throat. The Igari had been right about one thing: the power within the earth was real. But it wasn't just a weapon. It was something far greater, something that would change everything. Cost, Thomas managed to whisper. What do you mean by that? Anna's gaze hardened. The power of the earth cannot be wielded by just anyone. It requires a sacrifice. A choice must be made. Thomas's mind raced. He was no stranger to loss, but the weight of her words was different. If he was going to fight for Earth, if he was going to stop the Igari, what would he have to give up? He glanced at Anna, searching her face for answers, but she remained silent, her expression unreadable. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently, and the sky above darkened. The Igari were here. They had arrived, and they were closing in fast. Their massive craft hovered in the air above them, casting an eerie red light across the cemetery. The alien warriors descended, their eyes glowing with a menacing intensity. Anna stepped forward, her body glowing with the same ethereal light that had surrounded her since her return. We don't have much time, she said urgently. The Igari want this power, but they will never understand it. We can't let them have it. Thomas could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The Igari were ruthless, their intentions clear. They wanted Earth, they wanted control. And they were not going to stop until they had it. Anna placed her hand on the stone, and the symbols on its surface began to glow brighter. The energy around them intensified, swirling in the air like a storm about to break. Thomas stepped back, feeling the raw power emanating from the stone. He didn't know what Anna was doing, but it felt like she was unlocking something ancient, something dangerous. This is it, Anna said, her voice steady. The earth is awakening. But you must decide, Thomas. If we activate this power, there's no going back. Thomas looked around at the alien invaders, their weapons raised and ready. He could feel the heat of their gaze on him, the weight of their anticipation. They were here for one thing: to control Earth's power. But they didn't understand it. They didn't understand what it meant to be human, to love, to fight for what was worth protecting. He looked at Anna, her eyes filled with determination. He knew what he had to do. He had to fight for her, for Earth, and for the future. I'm ready, Thomas said, his voice full of resolve. Let's stop them. Anna nodded, and together they placed their hands on the stone. The moment their hands touched, a blinding light erupted from the artifact, flooding the cemetery with an overwhelming energy. The ground shook violently, and the air crackled with raw power. The Igari were not prepared for what was coming, but neither was Thomas. As the light engulfed them, he felt himself being pulled into the very heart of the earth, deeper than he had ever imagined. And in that moment, he understood this was more than a battle for survival. It was a battle for the soul of the planet itself. The blinding light engulfed Thomas and Anna, swallowing them whole as the stone beneath their hands surged with power. The ground shook violently, as though the earth itself was awakening from a deep slumber. Thomas's heart raced, and a sense of urgency filled him as the world around him seemed to stretch and bend. It was as if reality was warping, reshaping itself before his eyes. Anna's grip on his hand tightened, but her expression remained calm, focused. The light surrounding them began to pulse, steady and rhythmic, like the beating heart of the planet itself. The Igari, sensing the power growing, hesitated for a moment, their alien forms frozen in the glow of the energy radiating from the stone. Thomas could hear their leader's voice, echoing with venom. "No, this power belongs to us. You cannot stand against the might of the Igari." The words were filled with fury, but they were also tinged with uncertainty, as if the aliens had never encountered anything like this before. And for the first time, Thomas understood. The Igari were afraid. Anna's voice cut through the tension. They don't understand the power they seek. The earth is not theirs to control. The energy around them intensified, and suddenly, the earth beneath their feet began to tremble more violently. The air felt charged, filled with the raw force of nature itself. It was as if the land was responding to Anna's words, answering her call, ready to defend itself from the invaders. Then, it happened. The ground split open with a deafening crack, and from the depths, a massive surge of energy erupted, shooting upwards like a bolt of lightning. The light enveloped everything, engulfing the jury in its raw, untamed power. Thomas was momentarily blinded, and he stumbled back. The force of the eruption threw him off balance, but Anna stood firm, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She was no longer just the woman he had loved. She had become something far greater, something beyond comprehension. Her connection to the power beneath the earth had transformed her, granting her strength that was unimaginable. The Igari screamed in pain and fury, their dark, sleek forms writhing in the energy. They tried to retreat, but the power of the earth was too much for them. The stones that surrounded the graveyard began to glow, their ancient symbols lighting up one by one, as if they were joining in the defense of the land. The air crackled with electricity, and the rain that had been falling began to sizzle and evaporate in the heat of the energy. Thomas looked at Anna, his heart in his throat. "What is this? What did you unleash?" Anna turned to him, her eyes filled with a deep sadness, but also a sense of purpose. "This is the heart of the earth, Thomas. This is the power that has kept this planet alive for millennia. But it has always been hidden, kept safe from those who would try to control it. Until now." The Igari were retreating, but not without a fight. The air shimmered with the force of their weapons as they tried to retaliate. Beams of red energy shot out from their craft, slamming into the ground, sending shockwaves that shook the earth even further. But the power that had been awakened was more than a weapon. It was a force of nature. The Igari's energy blasts dissipated before they could reach Anna and Thomas, disintegrating in midair as if the earth itself was rejecting them. The alien leader roared in frustration. "This isn't over, Earthlings. The Igari do not yield. We will return." But as the leader gave the order to retreat, something unexpected happened. The very ground beneath the Igari began to shift, pulling them back toward the depths. It was as if the earth had a mind of its own, dragging them into the dark void below. The Igari scrambled, but their efforts were futile. The land was fighting back, and the power Anna had unlocked was too great. "Anna, we have to stop this," Thomas shouted, reaching for her. He could feel the energy in the air growing unstable, and he feared the consequences of continuing to channel such immense power. Anna's eyes met his, and for the first time she seemed vulnerable. "I can't control it, Thomas. Not fully. It's too much for me alone." Thomas took her hand, his mind racing. The earth was alive with power, but this wasn't the way to use it. The very energy that could save them could just as easily destroy them if they weren't careful. "We have to seal it," Thomas said, determination flooding his veins. "We have to stop the flow of power before it consumes everything." Anna nodded, her expression resolute. "You're right. The balance is fragile. But I can't do this alone." Together, they turned back to the stone, its symbols glowing more intensely than ever. The Igari were now trapped, their forms sinking into the earth. But they were still dangerous. They were not defeated, they were merely delayed. The power of the earth could stop them for now, but unless it was sealed, the invaders would return. Anna stepped forward, focusing all of her energy on the stone. The symbols began to pulse faster, the power around them reaching a crescendo. But it wasn't enough. The Ari would find a way to break free unless they locked this force away. Once and for all. Thomas stepped beside her, placing his hands on the stone once more. He could feel the power flowing through him now, coursing through his veins like fire. But instead of fear, he felt something else, something deep inside him, a connection to the earth, to Anna, to everything he had fought for. Together, they focused, their combined energy forcing the stone to seal. The light began to dim, slowly at first, but then faster. The air crackled as the surge of energy was contained, locked beneath the surface once more. The Igari's screams grew faint as they were pulled deeper into the earth, their weapons useless against the power of the land. And then, silence. The rain began to fall once more, gentle and steady. The battle was over for now. But the war was far from won. Anna collapsed to her knees, exhausted, but alive. Thomas knelt beside her, holding her close. She was different now, changed. But she was still the woman he had loved. And she wasn't going anywhere. Is it over? Thomas whispered. Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with a sense of quiet strength. It's not over, but we've won this battle. And we will fight the next one, together. The ground was calm once more, but the journey ahead was uncertain. The Igari would return. And when they did, Thomas and Anna would be ready. The earth had awakened, and with it, the fight for humanity's survival had only just begun. The silence after the battle was almost unbearable. The earth, which had rumbled and trembled with such force moments earlier, now seemed to have returned to a peaceful stillness. The sky, once a canvas of swirling energy and dark clouds, was now clear, with only a faint drizzle marking the end of the violent storm. The graveyard, too, had fallen quiet, as if it were holding its breath. Anna and Thomas knelt on the ground, their bodies drained from the immense power they had unleashed. Anna's glowing aura had dimmed significantly, and her usual ethereal presence now seemed more like that of a tired soul, struggling to find rest. But even in her exhaustion, there was something undeniable about her, something powerful and unyielding. Thomas held her close, his arms steady around her. He could feel the warmth of her skin, and it gave him a sense of peace amid the chaos. But the weight of everything that had happened, the knowledge that the Igari would eventually return, hung heavily in the air between them. "We've bought time," Anna said quietly, her voice hoarse but filled with resolve. "But we haven't won the war. They'll be back, Thomas. They'll bring more of their kind. And next time, they won't stop until they have what they came for." Thomas nodded, his thoughts racing. "But we've seen their weakness, Anna. They don't understand. The power of Earth. The land fought back against them. We can use that." She shook her head slightly, a small frown creasing her brow. "It's not that simple. The Igari are relentless. They'll adapt, they'll learn from what we did. And if we're not careful, the next time, they'll be ready. For us." Thomas squeezed her hand, his voice steady, despite the fear that churned in his stomach. "We'll be ready too. We have to be." Anna stood slowly, brushing the dirt off her clothes. "The power of the earth is not something we can control for long. It's a force of nature. The more we tap into it, the more we risk losing control. Ourselves. If we don't find a way to seal it permanently, if we don't stop the Igari once and for all, it could destroy us all." Thomas looked around, taking in the stillness of the graveyard. The tombstones stood like silent sentinels, their faces carved with centuries of history. His eyes drifted to the stone where the ancient power had been awakened, the artifact that had brought Anna back, that had given them the strength to fight. The symbols on its surface had dimmed, but still glowed faintly, as if waiting for the next movement, the next choice. Where do we go from here? Thomas asked. Anna's eyes followed his gaze, and she hesitated for a moment. There's a place. A temple deep underground, hidden from the world for millennia. It was created to house the power of Earth, to protect it from those who would seek to control it. But it's dangerous, Thomas. It's not just a place, it's a test. The Igari. We'll try to find it. If they do, it could be the end of everything. Thomas felt a cold shiver run down his spine. A test? Anna nodded. The power beneath us isn't meant to be controlled. The temple is a way to lock it away again, but it requires a sacrifice, a choice that will determine who gets to wield this power and who gets left behind. Thomas felt his chest tighten. The weight of her words pressed heavily on him. He had seen enough destruction in his life to understand what was at stake. If they failed, the Igari wouldn't just conquer Earth. They would twist it, drain it, and leave nothing behind. How do we get there? Thomas asked, determination now overriding the fear. Anna turned away, looking at the horizon. In the distance, the first light of dawn was breaking, casting a pale glow over the landscape. It was both beautiful and haunting. We'll need to travel. It's far from here, deep in the mountains, but we can't go alone. We'll need help. Before Thomas could ask who she meant, a faint voice reached them, distant but clear. You're not alone, Anna. The voice came from behind them. Thomas turned quickly, his hand instinctively going to the small blade he carried. But what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. A figure stepped from the shadows, a silhouette against the soft glow of the rising sun. It was a man tall, with features sharp and dignified, his dark hair swept back from his face. But what took Thomas by surprise was the energy surrounding him. The man's presence was almost palpable, like a storm waiting to break. Who are you? Thomas asked, his voice cautious. The man stepped forward, a slight smile crossing his face. I am someone who's been watching, waiting. Anna's expression softened as she met his gaze. This is Marcus. He's one of the last of the keepers, the protectors of the temple. Thomas glanced at Anna, trying to process what she was saying. Keepers? Protectors? The temple? He asked. Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the graveyard before focusing back on Anna and Thomas. The temple is no longer just a place. It is a key, and the Igari are not the only ones searching for it. Others have been drawn to the power here, forces both light and dark. If we are to stop the Igari, we must secure it. But the journey will be perilous, and the trials ahead will test you both in ways you cannot yet understand. Thomas looked at Anna, his heart heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. What do we do now? Anna turned to him, her expression solemn but resolute. We go to the temple, together, and we face whatever comes. The Igari might be relentless, but so are we. The journey was about to begin. They would travel through dangerous lands, across mountains and forests, to find the temple where the fate of the world would be decided. The Igari weren't the only threat they would face. The power of the earth itself was a force that neither Thomas nor Anna could fully comprehend. But they had no choice now. They had to unlock the temple's secrets, seal the power away, and stop the alien invaders once and for all. As the first rays of dawn touched the ground, they turned toward the distant mountains. And with Marcus at their side, they began their journey, knowing that whatever lay ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. The storm was rising, and the fight for Earth's survival was far from over. The journey was long and treacherous, filled with trials that tested not just their bodies, but their spirits. Thomas, Anna, and Marcus traveled through dense forests, across rugged mountain ranges, and through caves where the echoes of their footsteps seemed to speak of ancient secrets long forgotten. The further they went, the more Thomas could feel the weight of their mission bearing down on them. The Igari were not far behind, their presence felt even when not seen. But it wasn't just the alien invaders that haunted them. The very power of the earth itself seemed to grow stronger, more restless as they neared the temple. "Do you feel it?" Anna asked one night, as they sat around a campfire, the flames flickering against the darkness. She was staring out into the forest, her expression unreadable. Thomas nodded, his senses heightened. The air seemed to hum with an energy that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "The power ... it's alive." "It is," Marcus said, his voice low and filled with a strange reverence. "This is why the Keepers were created. To protect the power, to make sure no one can wield it without understanding the consequences. The Earth is not just a planet, it's a living entity. And its power ... it can either save or destroy." The fire crackled, sending sparks into the air. Thomas stared into the flames, contemplating what Marcus had said. He knew the stakes. The Igari had to be stopped, or they would strip the Earth of everything it had. But even if they sealed the power, even if they succeeded in stopping the invasion, what would be left? What kind of world would they have saved? "You said the temple holds the key," Thomas said, his voice heavy with doubt. "But Anna, how do we know we can control it?" "You said the power comes with a price." Anna met his gaze, her eyes filled with both sadness and determination. "We don't control it. We can only protect it, and protect ourselves. The temple will test us, Thomas. It will make us face the darkest parts of ourselves, the parts we would rather leave behind. And at the end, ... we must choose." "Choose?" Thomas repeated. His mind raced. "What do you mean, choose what?" Anna's gaze drifted to distant mountains, where the temple was said to be hidden. "The power of the earth demands a sacrifice. If we're to seal it away, one of us must give everything. The key can only be locked with the life of one who is truly connected to it. The Keeper's Code says that it's the only way to ensure that no one can ever misuse the power. It's the cost." Thomas felt his heart stop. "Anna ... You mean," she nodded solemnly, "one of us must stay behind. The sacrifice is not just physical. It's the sacrifice of a soul." A cold shiver ran down his spine. The weight of her words pressed heavily upon him. The earth was offering them a chance to save humanity, but it demanded everything in return. And now, the choice was inevitable. Only one could walk away. "The Igari will be here soon," Marcus said, his eyes hardening as he stood up. "We don't have much time. If we want to save the earth, we must make our way to the temple, face the trials, and make the choice before it's too late." Thomas didn't know what to say. His heart ached. He couldn't fathom losing Anna again, not after everything they had been through. But the power of the earth was too great to leave unchecked. The Igari couldn't be allowed to take control. And now, they had to face a choice that would define not just their future, but the future of the entire world. The final stretch of their journey took them to the foot of a mountain. A massive stone doorway, covered in moss and vine, stood before them. Ancient symbols were carved into the stone, glowing faintly with the same energy that had filled the graveyard. This was it, the temple. As they entered, the air grew thick with energy, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with a steady rhythm. The temple was vast, its walls lined with murals depicting scenes of Earth's ancient history, of creatures long extinct, of civilizations that had risen and fallen, and of the guardians who had watched over the Earth's secrets. At the center of the temple was a massive stone altar, surrounded by a swirling vortex of energy. The power within the stone seemed to call to them, beckoning them forward. Anna, Marcus, and Thomas stood before the altar. The hum of energy grew louder, the pressure on them nearly unbearable. Anna stepped forward, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. She reached out, touching the stone with both hands. The energy flared brightly, and the ground trembled beneath them. A voice deep and ancient echoed through the temple. "To lock away the power, a life must be given. Who among you will make the sacrifice?" Thomas looked at Anna, his breath caught in his throat. She was the key. She had always been the key. He could feel the pull of the power, but it wasn't enough to stop him from knowing what had to be done. The decision weighed heavily on him. "I'll do it," Anna said, her voice steady, though her eyes were filled with sorrow. "It has to be me." "No," Thomas said, shaking his head. "I won't let you." "You can't." Anna's hand on his arm silenced him. "Thomas, we've been through so much, but this is my choice. I've already died once. And now I have the chance to make sure Earth survives. We all have our parts to play in this story, but this is mine." Her words broke his heart. But in that moment, he understood. She had always been the one to fight. She had always been the one who protected. And now she was giving everything for him, for humanity, for the Earth. The energy around them swirled violently, and the voice of the Earth returned, more urgent now. The choice is made. The sacrifice is accepted. With one final lingering look at Thomas, Anna stepped forward, her hands resting on the stone. The power around them surged, and the temple seemed to shake with the force of it. The ground cracked open, and the vortex of energy began to pull everything toward it. Thomas reached out for Anna, but the energy was too strong. Her form began to fade, the light surrounding her growing brighter and brighter until she was no more than a silhouette. "Goodbye, Thomas," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'll always be with you." And with that, Anna became one with the Earth, her sacrifice locking away the power forever. The temple fell silent, the energy dissipating, and the world seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The Agari would never have control. The Earth had been saved, but at what cost? Thomas stood alone in the temple, his heart shattered. He had lost her again, this time for good. But he knew, deep down, that Anna's spirit would live on. In every moment of beauty, in every fight for survival, she would be there, watching over him. As he turned to leave the temple, Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've done it, Thomas. The power is sealed." Thomas nodded, his voice quiet, filled with a profound sadness. "Yes, but the cost was too great. She gave everything." Marcus didn't answer, but his eyes spoke volumes. There were no words for this kind of loss. The war was over. Earth had been saved. But for Thomas, the true battle was just beginning, a battle to honor Anna's sacrifice, and to rebuild a world where peace could thrive. And in his heart, he knew one thing for certain. Anna had never truly left him. Her love would always be with him, guiding him as he stepped forward into a future without her, but one she had fought to protect.